the Rideau King, the Rideau Queen, the Swan, the Eleanor, the Maggie May, the Peerless, and barges by the score, hauling horses, hay and harrows, timber tools and tea, while the lockmaster spun the crab for 60 cents a day. Cheese from Carleton County, mica from the mines, and the shanty boys with all their tails are hurling down the pines. The steady stream of industry has long since disappeared, leaving nothing for this waterway but bait and bass and beer.
Hi, we're Tamarack.
And for about 10 years now, we've been traveling all across this great nation of ours, singing songs about Canada and Canadians.
So come with us as we travel from Kingston to Ottawa through 160 years of Canadian history.
Where are all the warehouses, the factories and the mills? Where's the echo of the axes clearing forest from these hills? And the ghostly steamboat whistle through the drowned land's heavy air. If you listen very carefully, you'll hear them still, I swear.
The Rideau Canal was built between 1827 and 1832 by Colonel John By for the British military, who wanted a safe supply route in case those belligerent Americans to the south cut off the St. Lawrence River route. From Kingston Harbor, protected by the great Fort Henry, the British would be able to go up the Cataraqui River and then down the Rideau to the Ottawa River, which would take them safely to Montreal.
Here it comes.
We've gone up now, how about, I don't know,
20 feet maybe?
20 feet?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we went up as high as that one.
In 1827, the land here was virtually unbroken wilderness. But following hard on the heels of the construction crews came the loggers, the miners, the farmers, and the businessmen who settled this part of Ontario. Those busy tugboats and barges have given way to speedboats and bass fishermen, but the canal itself remains very much as it was in the 1830s. The locks are still operated by hand, and most of the original stonework is still in place.
In the hog's back locks, that's all fine Scottish stone masonry. The finest stonework that you'll ever see. Here comes the hard part now, ready? Unanimally, Beveridge, Narrows, Close-Smiths, Falls, Black Rapids, Marrickville, Burridge, Rapids, Old Slice, Hardwell, Long Island, Nicholson's, Newborough, Chafee's, Davis, Edmonds, Kingston Mills, all built by us lads from the Highlands. D7 we built the Rideau Canal, and we built it as well as our homes back in old Aberdeen. Every last rock, brewers, mills to Kilmarnock, that's all fine Scottish stone masonry. The finest stonework that you'll ever see. One more time, the hard part. Emily, Beveridge, Narrows, Close-Smiths, Falls, Black Rapids, Marrickville, Burridge, Rapids, Old Slice, Hardwell, Long Island. All right. Nicholson's, Newborough, Chafee's, Davis, Edmonds, Kingston Mills, all built by us lads from the Highlands. One more time. All built by us lads from the Highlands.
Military defense might have been the reason for the Rideau Canal, but its lifeblood was commerce. The canal opened just as the steam engine began to push aside the old era of wind and sail. And it wasn't long before the forests here were being felled, first to build the ships, and then to provide the cordwood to fire up the boilers. Shipyards along the Rideau produced hundreds of vessels over the years, from barges to great 300-passenger steamers. The captains who guided those boats through the drowned forests and rocky cuts might have been a dashing lot, but the navigation charts are dotted with shoals and rocks named for many of their boats that met an untimely demise.
Well, they launched the Kitty Friel in the spring of '69. She spent 10 good years in service hauling on the Rideau line. 10 years of rafts and barges with a crew both tried and brave, till 5 miles out of Merrickville she met a fiery grave. And it's pass around the bottle, boys, raise your glasses high. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. On the 18th day of August, 1879, she was steaming hard for Ottawa on a day so warm and fine, loaded down with well-dried timber, worth its weight in gold, when a funnel spark got settled, glowing deep within her hold. And it's pass around the bottle, boys, raise your glasses high. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. Now the fire blazed so quickly that it caught the engineer. He couldn't reach the valves to shut her down, and she steamed 4 miles clear before the captain found the courage to run his ship aground so his men could save their lives before they all went down. And it's pass around the bottle, boys, raise your glasses high. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. Well, now the whistle melted off as they were running through the trees. In a roar like God's own thunder, they were thrown to their knees. In a blast of steam and flame that the people heard in town. 5 miles out of Merrickville, the Kitty Friel went down. And it's pass around the bottle, boys, raise your glasses high. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die. Here's a health to all good sailors, may they never, never die.
Here, I got the charts. I think we just came through.
So there you are. You want to cut in between the tiny island on the left, big island on the right.
Which ones am I going in between, you guys?
Okay, the little one over there is Tiny Island, and the big one is actually called Big Island, and you just cut in between the two of them.
Right there? The little one. Oh, and that's the big one. Every honest Irish working man thought he was escaping when he ran from the cannon's roar and the famine's horror. He's just found a new hell on the Rideau canal, and that swamp fever gives you the shivers and shakes. Swamp fever, it is going to break you down. Oh, that swamp fever all along the Rideau.
This is Cranberry Lake. It's a very pastoral site right now, but 160 years ago, it was called Cranberry Bog. It was a putrid swamp, and when Colonel By and his men came through here working, they saw this blue mist rising up out of the swamp. They started to get sick. Some of them would be dead within 2 days after getting a serious fever. They didn't know what it was. We know now that it was a strain of malaria brought here by British soldiers from India. Along the route of the canal, over the course of its construction, many thousands of workers lost their lives to what they called swamp fever.
In winter, when they send the tourists home and drain the water out of the locks, it's a good time to get a look at how the mechanism actually works. A boat enters the upper lock. The gate swings shut behind it. The water is then let down into the lower lock, and when the levels are equal, the lower gates open. The boat proceeds, and the cycle repeats.
You know, you can see how big these gates actually are. Apparently when they built them in the 1820s, 1830s, they used to use local oak because they used to have big oak trees around here. You don't get trees that big anymore.
No.
So they use Douglas fir from British Columbia. It's the only tree around anymore that's big enough to build these gates. Now here in the winter, you actually get a chance to take a look at these mechanisms. You know, you can see an actual rack and pinion mechanism here that lifts the sluice gates. And then the way they get the water in and out of these locks is through tunnels in the side wall. When you want to drain out one of the locks, they open up the sluice gate and the water goes racing through a tunnel here, fills up the bottom lock, and then when the water levels are equal, then you can get the gates open and the boats can go down.
Leonardo da Vinci is credited with the original concept of locks. The Rideau waterway represents perhaps the peak of the British Royal Engineers' practical refinement of his idea.
Now these locks each have a lift of about 15 feet, which apparently at the time they built these things was as high as any locks anywhere. When you think of how few people there were, over here there's just sheer wilderness in 1828.
Yeah,
It's amazing they got them built at all.
In 4 years.
Only took them 4 years.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi. Where were you guys?
Alex was showing me how these locks operate here.
It's neat, huh? Did you take a look around here? It's beautiful. Look at all the stuff.
Yeah, you should have seen it a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, you should have seen it 150 years ago.
Right.
At Jones Falls stands the Rideau's last functioning blacksmith shop, one of many built along the canal during its construction to provide the hinges and crabs and chains and even tools for the workers.
And this is a piece of steel. It started with a 1/2-inch square rod, and it's part of a plug and feather that would be used to break stone. The stonemasons would use to break apart rock when they were building the canal. They put a series of these across the face of the stone. You would drill a hole. The feathers would be inserted, and then in goes the plug.
Right.
And then as the plug goes down, the feathers split farther apart, and that would split the stone wide open.
Oh.
And that's what they would use to build with. Works very well. Still
Yeah.
used today.
This looks like it's a toaster.
Yes, it is, actually. Come on over, Melanie, we'll have a look.
So this is for like turning it in front of the fire or something?
Huh.
Well,
One
actually,
side and then the other?
yeah, you cook one side and then you would be able to just turn it around and cook the other side.
Now that is ingenious.
In this book, this is a pretty amazing list, requisition list from the early 1820s.
1826 to 1829. There are actually different things that Colonel By ordered for building the Rideau Canal. There are a number of different blacksmithing items that he ordered in there, as well as other things for both the carpenters and the gate builders and the stonemasons.
Right. Huh.
So you call this a blacksmith shop because you get your hands filthy, right?
No, you call this a blacksmith shop because blacksmiths work with black metal, and smith is an Old English word that means maker. There are silversmiths, goldsmiths, tinsmiths,
And
blacksmiths.
blacksmiths. Okay.
But you also get filthy.
We're songsmiths.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
See you later.
See you again.
It's not hard to be impressed by our ancestors' capacity for hard work, but their ability to create structures as beautiful as they are functional is equally impressive. The dam here at Jones Falls, 300 feet long and over 60 feet high, was one of the largest dams in the world in its day, and the 4 flight locks nestle into the walls of the gorge as if nature herself had always intended to have them there. Each of these stone blocks was hauled in by ox team from a quarry 6 miles away and lifted into place with simple block and tackle. For men equipped with not much more than picks and shovels, this wild, boulder-strewn canyon must have been a discouraging sight. At times, hundreds of men labored here. Other times, their numbers decimated by disease, rockfall, and accident. A mere handful struggled on.
In the winter, I'm a shanty boy cutting timber in these hills. I work for British Billings, at least it's his store holds my bills. I owe him for the food I eat, for the clothes upon my back, for the whiskey that I drink to keep from freezing in my tracks. In the spring I ride the logs and take my share of icy spills. But Billings doesn't need an extra hand to run his mills. And the only work that a man who owns no land has left to do is excavating on the Rideau with the colonel and his crew. So it's swing your pick and shovel from dawn till set of sun. Push those barrels up the ramps till you've moved 1,000,000 tons. Half that 9-pound hammer, twist the bit and turn the screws. Pack in the black powder, cross yourself and light the fuse. As many as the night we've spent in song and shared a friendly glass, and it's many's the mate I've lost to foolishness and ill-timed blast, and it's many's the hurried prayers been said over slides of shattered rock, the grave of many a brave man killed to race a British clock. So when autumn comes, I'll gladly trade my pick for sharp broadaxe, and I'll head up to the shanty along icy forest tracks.
If there's danger in those lumber woods, it's a risk that's very low, compared with excavating out on Colonel By's Rideau. If there's danger in those lumber woods, it's a risk that's very low, compared with excavating out on Colonel By's Rideau.
There was a time when commercial traffic on the Rideau was so heavy that the locks had to stay open 24 hours a day. The work of a lockmaster back then wasn't easy, but it was one place where you could earn a decent wage, and the job came with a nice little house. So the records show that many a lockmaster handed his job on to his son, who would then hand it on to his son, and so on. Well, I don't suppose the rules of the Federal Civil Service would allow that sort of nepotism anymore. The lock crews here still work long shifts, 70 to 80 hours a week, and they spin those crabs often enough on busy summer weekends to look forward to autumn, when snow and ice finally close the works down for another season.
Okay, you can go out.
Come sit you down, me cronies, give us your chat. Let the wine take the cares of the world on its back.
Even before the canal was built, there was a tiny settlement here at Chaffee's Lock, with a mill and a brewery and a few small houses. This area has always been a great place for fishing. Tourists have come here for decades looking for a little relaxation and a tale to tell the folk back home about the one that got away and the ones that didn't.
And give us a bumper of Nappin's best brown ale. It strengthens the heart and enlivens the tale. For we'll all be the merrier the longer we set. For we've drunk together many's the time, and so will we yet. And so will we yet, and so will we yet. For we've drunk together many's the time, and so will we yet. And so will we yet, and so will we yet. For we've drunk together many's the time, and so will we yet. And here's to the farmer, and prosper his plow, rewarding his ardent toil the whole year round. Each seed time and harvest we never can forget, for we've always been provided for, and so will we yet, and so will we yet.
In 1829, the 7th Company of Royal Sappers and Miners gathered here in Newborough to begin work on the Cut, one of the most difficult and dangerous sections of the waterway. To keep desertions in the ranks to a minimum, workers were offered 100 acres of land upon completion of the canal. And many of the fine homes along the Rideau shores here were built by those sappers who didn't end up prematurely in this lonely acre.
So it wasn't always just hard work and misery along the canal. Here in the beautiful village of Westport, whenever the French, the Irish, and the Scottish settlers got together, sometimes they'd make music, much like you're hearing right now. And it became part of a musical tradition that's still strong today, and it's being kept up by friends like Dawson Girdwood and Gina Gilchrist.
Let's try it faster.
Yeah,
Try it faster?
Want to dance it, Gina?
Okay.
The plaster?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the music, guys.
Nice seeing you
Why don't you
again,
send us on our way with a good old Irish jig? There's so many options. All right, perfect. You're right in the heart of the Rideau cottage country here, it seems. You got a big combination of big expensive cruisers and young yahoos out for a joyride in their small boats. Do you run into a lot of troubles with inexperienced boaters trying to get through your locks here?
Actually, we don't have too much trouble with inexperienced boaters. We have inexperienced boaters, but they don't create much of a problem. The biggest thing that the inexperienced boater doesn't know is that the reverse is the brakes.
Oh, yeah. So, how come such a big, strong lockmaster like you has such an itty-bitty lock station to operate here?
Well, that has nothing to do with the with the strength required to run one, believe me. This is the busiest one in the system.
Is it really the busiest one? Wow.
Yeah. In July and August, it's a non-stop operation.
So a lot of folks just coming down from one lake to the next and back again? And...
Well, you get everything that's going through as well as the local traffic to Westport and stuff. Like, we did almost 9,000 boats last year.
Wow.
This bridge here, this place is called Rideau Ferry. In the old days, it used to be called Oliver's Ferry, and there's a real story there.
Oh, really? What happened?
Well, it's got ghosts in it, and I thought we'd better wait until tonight's campfire before I tell you this story.
Ooh, scary.
So have the children gone to bed, asleep with lanterns dimmed? Well, then I'll tell a tale my father told, his father told to him. Pass the whiskey round once more and stoke the dying flame. Why, this night so thick with ghosts you could call them by their names. They say a man named Oliver once ran the ferry here. Some men claim you can see him yet when the moon shines full and clear. And many a weary traveler he helped upon the way, those who came upon these narrows between dawn and end of day. But to those who asked for passage when the sun sank past the trees, the ferryman would shake his head. Till morning, if you please, be kind enough to share our home. By night, this water's rough. When the dawn breaks in the east, the trip is safe enough. We'll have you on your way right quick. Pray rest with us a while. And the good man poured the ale and set the table with a smile. Many a weary traveler lay down on Oliver's bed, and many a weary traveler was never seen again. Now when morning came, says Oliver, we sent them on their way, ferried to the distant shore at very break of day. They paid us well, said Oliver, for our room and board and gin. but many a weary traveler was never seen again. Now Oliver, he lived a well-fed life, and a well-fed man he died. But the men who tore his old house down found a grisly sight inside. For beneath the boards of Oliver's floor lay the skeletons of men slain for the gold of their purses and the flesh beneath their skin. And at night, when the moon shines full and clear, you can still hear them call at his door, "Ferryman, rise, for the night grows dark." And we long for the distant shore.
And when that wicked war was through, and all our regiments were disbanded, word came down from Wellington that we'd be given Canadian land. And like a good honest Scot, I thought to better my lot, I said, come on lads, why don't we go? So we all put down our guns and our new life was begun on the bonny banks of the Rideau. And then one day old Colonel John said, do you know the stonemason's trade? He said, brave Scots, now come along, I've got some stones that need to be laid. We built the Rideau canal and we built it as well as our homes back in old Aberdeen. Every last rock in the hog's back logs, that's all fine Scottish stone masonry, the finest stonework that you'll ever see. Poon Emily, Beveridge, Narrows, Low, Smith Falls, Black Rapids, Merrickville, Birds Rapids, Old Slides, Hartwell, Long Island, Nicholson's, Newborough, Chaffee's, Davis, Edmonds, Kingston Hills, all built by us lads from the Highlands. We built the Rideau Canal and we built it as well as our homes back in old Aberdeen. Every last rock, brewers' mills to Kilmarnock, that's all fine Scottish stone masonry, the finest stonework that you'll ever see. Poon Emily, Beveridge, Narrows, Low, Smith Falls, Black Rapids, Merrickville, Birds Rapids, Old Slides, Hartwell, Long Island, Nicholson's, Newborough, Chaffee's, Davis, Edmonds, Kingston Hills, all built by us lads from the Highlands, all built by us lads from the Highlands.
The Merrickville Lock Station is one of very few that was built within an already existing community. Temptation proved too great for early lockmasters who would often slip over to the local tavern. One lowly lockhand would be left behind, and when a boat came, he'd beat a stick against a big iron hoop to summon the refreshed crew back to work.
1, 2, 3.
My father ran this lock station for nigh on 40 years, and when he died, he handed me the keys. He said, keep the station tidy, don't forget to take the tolls, and in the winter, you can do just what you please. So ring the iron hoop, boy, when a boat comes into view, call the men back from the tavern in the town. We'll set the crab a-spinning, swing the gates and lock her through. It's another Rideau steamer headed down. Well, now the steam engine don't sleep in these locks, they never close. And late at night you can hear the whistle blow, and the clinking of the gate chains, and the lantern's ghostly glow must be the lonesomest sound I've ever known. So ring the iron hoop, boy, when a boat comes into view, call the men back from the tavern in the town. We'll set the crab a-spinning, swing the gates and lock her through.
steamer headed down. Take it away. Well, you can hear the bells on Sunday calling us to church, and the preacher, he condemns us to a man. Well, the Sabbath might be holy, but I don't eat if I don't work, so I'll just have to hope that God can understand. When we ring the iron hoop, boy, when a boat comes into view, call the men back from the tavern in the town. We'll set the crab a spinning, swing the gates and lock her through. It's another Rideau steamer headed down. It's another Rideau steamer headed down. It's another Rideau steamer headed down.
Part of the romance of the Rideau is its natural beauty, and part of the romance is the wealth of its history. But part of the romance must surely be romance.
Look at this.
What a beautiful room. Look at that.
And the piano.
Yeah, the violin.
Oh, we should try a tune before Alex gets here.
Okay. Let's do Black Rapids Girl. Is it in tune?
Pretty good.
Okay, let's go.
Sarah was the lockmaster's daughter, the apple of every steamboat captain's eye. On summer evenings she'd sit by the water, watch as those big Rideau steamers went by. Sometimes she'd hear the ship's orchestras play on the decks as the fancy-dressed passengers danced. The captain would wave and she'd dream that someday he'd ask her on board and he'd give her the chance to escape from that Black Rapids lockmaster's cottage. He'd steam up the Rideau and into the world. Somehow Sarah always thought she'd be so much more than a Black Rapids girl. Many's the dockside Don Juan courted Sarah. She would politely refuse each request. She knew in her heart that just one really cared, how the Rideau King's captain was who loved her best. One day she saw him step onto the pier. He held her hand, he sat by her side. He said if she'd wait till the spring of the year, he'd return and he'd make her a boat captain's bride. They'd escape from that Black Rapids lockmaster's cottage. He'd steam up the Rideau and into the world. Somehow Sarah always thought she'd be so much more than a Black Rapids girl.
5 decades ago, but Sarah still watches along the canal. She thinks that she hears those big steam whistles blow, the steam whistles Sarah remembers so well.
All ye Rideau rovers, your roving's almost over. We'll all be in the clover when we dock in Ottawa.
Sing it!
All ye Rideau rovers, Rideau rovers, almost over. We'll all be in the clover when we dock in Ottawa. All ye Rideau rovers, Rideau rovers, almost over. We'll all be in the clover when we dock in Ottawa. All ye Rideau rovers, Rideau rovers, almost over. Almost all be in the clover when we dock in Ottawa. All ye Rideau rovers, Rideau rovers, almost over. We'll all be in the clover when we dock in Ottawa.
All ye fish head rovers, your roving's almost over.
Wait, okay, fish heads, ready?
Fish heads, roly roly fish heads, eat 'em up, yum!
Lovely.
That's a good ending.
It's a hit.
Oh, my name is Colonel By of the Royal Engineers. An American attack was what the kingdom feared, so a line of supply must be secured from Kingston to Quebec. Ships on the St. Lawrence would be too hard to protect, so they wanted a waterway through the wilderness, and Wellington decided to put me to the test. So through the rocks and through the rapids, turning forests into fields, with axes and black powder we forced the land to yield. I was standing on the Hog's Back Dam the day it tumbled down. Felt those rocks a-shifting as we raced for solid ground. Floodwaters rising up, they did give us a fright. We built it up again until we finally got it right. We built the world's highest dam in the canyon at Jones Falls. Still strikes me a wonder that mortals raised those walls. We built a dozen fortunes for a dozen other men, like McKay and Wright and Redpath, giants we'll not see again. For every hard-won mile, death took its toll, with injury and fever raging out of control. Navvies dug this ditch through problems well beyond belief, but it was red tape from home that gave to me my greatest grief. Because they wouldn't give me cash to pay my contractors on time. Then they hauled me on the carpet to account for every dime. They claimed I was too carefree with the coin of the crown, but I built a monument that none but God will e'er tear down. And then they called me back to England, not in honor but disgrace. Of my detractors you must search to find a trace, but from far beyond the grave I guess I've had the final laugh. I claim this Rideau waterway to be my epitaph. Oh, I claim this Rideau waterway to be my epitaph.
When Colonel By founded the little village of Bytown, he could hardly have foreseen its growth, first into a rough and tumble lumber town, and then into the graceful city of Ottawa, known more for its politics than its industry. The warehouses and railroad tracks are now flower beds and jogging paths, but here, where the flight of 8 blocks leads us down to the Ottawa River and the end of our voyage, flanked by Parliament Hill on one side and the turrets of the Chateau Laurier on the other, It's not hard to imagine old Colonel by himself standing up on the heights, surveying his masterwork with pride.
So when autumn comes, I'll gladly trade my pick for sharp broadaxe, and I'll head up to the shanty along icy forest tracks. If there's danger in those lumber woods, it's a risk that's very low compared with excavating out on Colonel By's Rideau. If there's danger in those lumber woods, it's a risk that's very low compared with excavating out on Colonel By's Rideau.